Welcome to episode 7 of Real Nurse Stories. In this episode, I interview a midwife about her career history. We have de-identified this episode to protect her anonymity, and the reasons for that are that in this interview, she openly shares some difficult personal situations in the course of her work as a midwife that deal with pressure, stress, burnout, and grief. And the whole purpose of doing these interviews is to allow nurses to share their stories so that other nurses and midwives listening to those stories can relate to some of those things that are talked about. Sometimes there's a reluctance in nursing and midwifery to be able to share some of those experiences in such a candid way that occurs in this interview. I think the other thing that I really wanted to say about this interview is that sometimes just the very process of storytelling can be cathartic for people who've been on the show, and those comments have been said about the therapeutic benefits to that person of sharing their story. This episode is also an example of how personal and team resilience can be depleted, and there are lots of examples throughout the interview where the midwife openly acknowledges that sometimes she didn't know how to protect herself, and sometimes that the team put everyone else before themselves, and it's very difficult for people working in a pressured environment to be able to look after their own health and well-being in a situation that's very stressful and very pressured. If you've been affected by any of these issues in this story, there is a contact number for a National Nurse Midwife helpline at the beginning of this episode. And if you feel that you would like some help around building personal or team resilience, then my contact details are also in the episode. Welcome to the Real Nurse Stories podcast.
Hey Eva, nice to be here.
That's great. That's nice to have you here. You're actually the first midwife that I've had the opportunity to interview about their career, so I'm really quite pleased about that because, yeah, I think it's good to have a midwife perspective in there and not all just nurses.
Yeah.
So if we could maybe start at the beginning, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about how you started your career as a midwife. That would be a good starting place.
Okay, well, I wanted to be a nurse when I was younger, but I had my children, first one unexpectedly at 21. So then I stayed at home, and then I went into childcare. So over in the UK, you can do like what they call family childcare. It was childminding over there. So I did that for up until 3 children. And then we moved. My dad retired. The youngest was starting school. I was kind of like, now I want to do something. I want to do something for me. So I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to look after sick people. Although you get sick people in midwifery.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wanted to do something different. So I decided I'd try for midwifery. So direct entry midwife. They had a May intake over in the UK. So I applied. I got in first time. And I was 38-ish, I think. Coming up to 40 anyway.
Yeah.
It was a struggle.
Yeah.
I remember my first day of placement, I had a midwife say to me, this is on the postnatal ward in a large London National Health Service hospital. If you come back tomorrow, you'll finish your degree. And I went back the following day. So I finished my degree. I always had the intention to come to Australia. I just found my passion. I think it just fell into place. Everything just fell into place, and it was right. I wouldn't say it was exactly what I was looking for, but once I started, it was right. Yeah, so before I qualified, I put out feelers to here. I got an interview in London, and got offered a job, and relocation. I actually practiced as a community midwife in the UK for 11 months.
That was post-qualifying.
Yes. Yeah. Which I really enjoyed. So it was more of a team midwifery. So, you know, you'd still do your shifts in birth suite and postnatal ward, and then you do all your GP clinics and your bookings and everything else, and postnatal stuff. It was fairly full on, 12-hour days most of the time. I do 12-hour days now. So yeah, then I came to Australia, and it's basically where most of my career has been
in Australia.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that about the differences, you know, because, well, I would imagine there's lots of differences having trained in a busy London hospital to then moving to Australia. How did you manage with that?
I really struggled.
Yeah.
Really struggled. I'd also, you know, moving a whole family. I had a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
That came with me. That was a struggle. You know, transport, not knowing distances to places. You know, I thought, you know, I used to walk to work. Yeah, so yeah, it was a major struggle, and the private side of things I wasn't very aware of out here. I didn't realise it was predominantly private, you know, and I didn't, you know, and it's funny, you know, in the National Health Service they all have the same policies, procedures, you know, across the board, so everybody knows everything. You know, well, not everything, but they know what's what. You know, so if I went and worked at another trust, it would be the same. Whereas things are different from obstetrician to obstetrician, or, you know, here. I struggled with that a lot. But used to get told to just be quiet, pretty much. They're getting paid, you know. So I sought, or what would you say? I sought a similar path to the UK. So I went into midwifery group practice, and I did that for 7 years. Gave me way more autonomy, better relationships with the women and families. I did 5 years of mainstream women. Okay, so yeah, then I went into another group with a more diverse group of women with English not as their first language. And that had always kind of been my passion to do that, but it became a real struggle with the language barriers and the culture. I mean, they were all beautiful people, but it was very difficult to get messages across. They wouldn't call you because you're on call 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
5 days a week. They wouldn't call you. They'd just go to the hospital. So you didn't have that preempt of, I'm going to have to go in, or be able to talk them into taking a Panadol and seeing how things are going, or having a discussion with them regarding whether their waters are broken or not, or whether they are, you know, bleeding, or if it's something that needs to go to the hospital. So it would be like a 3-hour round trip to give someone a Panadol, you know, and it was became quite a struggle for me. The group dynamics wasn't fabulous either. The team that I went into, and that put an extra strain on. So I think after 7 years, 5 years of mainstream and 2 years with the other group, I was burnt out. So I approached our head of midwifery, because it's a pretty open organisation, and asked if I could have a secondment into birth suite, which she was happy for me to do. I still had to interview for it. And then I went over as a level 1 registered midwife, and yeah, I just started to grow again. You know, the education, things that, you know, in the group practice, you know, where everything is normal, and that's fine, and it should be majority of the time. I just started to learn. And the unit was developing as well, so it gave me an opportunity to do obstetric triage, early pregnancy, all sorts of other things as well. So they allowed me to learn and grow, and I think that's where I thrive when I've got a challenge. And then I interviewed for a level 2 position, clinical midwife position, a couple of times. I'm not the best at interviews. And yeah, so I needed a bit of coaching and a bit of feedback on a few things. And then they started a rotational clinical midwife position, so I got that position. So that's just just rolling on at the moment. So I've been leading the 2 parts of the unit. There's 3 parts. Haven't done the 3rd part yet. But yeah, no, it's been interesting.
It sounds interesting. It does.
It's been interesting from being the registered midwife to being in my room looking after women, to stepping up to leading the unit. There's so much I didn't realise was actually happening behind the scenes. So much political stuff and backbiting.
Can I just go back to some about burnout, because I think it's one of those topics that does sometimes come up in other interviews that I've done with nurses. And if you're happy to, I would just like to explore that a little bit more with you in terms of, how did you recognise that you had burnout?
Well, because I would cry every time the phone went off.
Yeah.
So I had a phone that was with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I would cry and not want to go back in and just want to sleep and be confrontational with, you know, you have to come back in. No, I don't want to. Whereas I'd never been like that. I'm very passionate about caring for my women, and I think I probably have put them first in some situations above my own family. How did I recognise it? I think I just started to headbutt with people as well. I don't think it was a recognition of I'm burnt out. I think it was, you keep trying to go for the women and the team, not wanting to admit that you are burnt out.
Did you admit that to anybody then back?
Oh gosh, yes, I did. I did. Look, I'd had some issues in my personal life too. which had been quite massive. But in the team I'd been in before we got through that, they were such a much better team, a more supportive team. I didn't have those issues then in this next team, but it just didn't fit right.
No.
And I don't think that helped the situation at all. There wasn't as much give and take.
Was there support for you at that time when you were struggling with those feelings and the kind of emotional behaviours that was that the burnout was causing? Did you have any support as a midwife at that time?
Not within midwifery. I would say outside of midwifery, yes. I had my partner, who's always been very supportive of whatever I want to do. But he is a new partner too, so we've only been together for 5 years. And he was supportive of me changing to the new team. But was also supportive of me, going back to core midwifery. So I don't know. It's difficult to say whether it was the kind of support I needed or whether they were. We had a team leader who was outside of our team, so she was a team leader or the NUM or whatever you would call her for all the group practices, who you could go to. But I don't know that you'd always get the responses you wanted. I wouldn't say she didn't want to be supportive. I think within the organisation they are tied to, they have pressure from above and pressure from the bottom. And they're kind of sandwiched in the middle of that, and it's hard for them. And I've only really just noticed that being the clinical lead now, how much of that they must get. The managers or the NUMs,
So really your support came from external sources, and from what you've described there, you changed to a different position, so that kind of alleviated the stressful situation that you were in at the time.
And I suppose I was fortunate that I could do that. Not everyone can within an organisation. If you can't do the job, then it's time to move on. But they were supportive of me moving into the hospital rather than being community based, which was good.
Do you think that those kind of feelings of stress and burnout, is that common in midwifery?
I think we all have mental health sick days. Quite a lot. We are a very close team, and the majority of people are very supportive. But you've just got those few people, that kind of don't help the situation. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to know. I think a lot of people have their own issues outside of work as well. We have really good managers who you can go to. And I don't think there's anything you couldn't go to them for. But I don't think. But as I said, they're restricted from what. The other side of it,
the pressures in relation to the actual service.
That's right. But I had a conversation with my manager the other week about staying in the clinical midwife position, because taking the step back down is quite daunting. To allow somebody else to rotate into that place, which is a big thing, I suppose, to be able to do that. But I had a chat with her, and she was, she said, like, if I could, I'd give you all the job, but she can't.
No.
So, because she's got her hands tied too. So, but we can go into their office and shut the door and cry and all sorts of things. And we've had a lot go on within our unit with that, are external to the job, but it has a huge impact on us. So we're all pretty close. And
I was just going to say that as a team, certainly as a midwifery team, from how you're describing that, it sounds like you are a close-knit team in that sense.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't realise the politics and the behaviour of some people. I do remember one of the clinical midwives, before I stepped up, said, it will be a rapid lesson in people's personalities. And it has been. So, and I think I'm still finding my place within that. I want to do right by the client and the organisation, and by myself. And it's hard to challenge people who have been, in that role for a longer period of time. But try and have the assumption that we've all come to work to do good. No one wants to hurt anyone. We're there because we want to be there. So
there's lots of challenges in there, aren't there, really?
And I don't think because I'm leading the team that I'm the best. I know there are people that will know more than I know, or have done things that I haven't done, and I'm more than open to conversations, discussions, working as a team, be that from a doctor to a junior midwife, who may have learned something new, midwifery, at the end of her qualifying or whatever, that we haven't, been exposed to yet. So, I want to make them feel that they're better. That, that they come to work to learn and to do better. I don't want to, and I think that's lost in some cases. It's so stressful, so busy, 24/7 that gets lost, because you're just under that stress and pressure all the time. We very rarely have downtime. We very rarely get breaks. And it's not because, we don't want to. We, as a team, put everyone else before ourselves. And our bosses try and tell us to go have breaks, go and have your breaks, make sure you get your breaks. There's no reason you shouldn't have your breaks. But, you don't want to go and have your break when your RM's still not had her break, or she's still doing, the pharyngex and things like that, so you wouldn't do that.
No.
So I can understand how people become a bit bitter, and aren't open to other people's thoughts or or insight.
It's very difficult, isn't it, when the pressure is on? It kind of is passed down the line, and that doesn't make it right or excuse it, but you can see how that creates this pressure cooker of circumstances and impacts on everybody really in the team. And taking breaks, if you're to take a break and somebody else doesn't, then that must evoke those feelings of guilt, on a personal level. And it's all kind of in that, almost like a hamster wheel, isn't it, of being busy, being pressured, and that drives that huge amount of stress. And as we know, if that's left unchecked, that does leave lead to burnout. And I think, you know,
Absolutely.
midwifery is a tough job for that reason, really, because the sheer volume of women and deliveries and care, and it's a high pressured environment with no let up, really.
Yeah, like our pregnancy assessment unit can have 80 to 120 women through in a day. You know, and that's just rock up. So, you know, and then there's appointments and stuff as well. So it can be really full on, really full on through the day. When it's funny enough though, when we had the COVID lockdown, we didn't get many people come.
I've so many nurses have said that to me recently. You know, that's been an experience. I think Australia, parts of Australia anyway, seem to have fared better than people thought. So it's
that's right. So that was a very stressful time as well, I think, for all. You know, all the changes that had to be in place, you know, different updates, you know, all the time, and how we were going to manage it, and, you know, the rooms, and we had to be so careful. So I think that added another layer of stress on top of a stressful-ish environment anyway. I mean, I do, you know, I kind of have this philosophy, we can only do what we can do. You know, we can't do more than we can with what we've got. But yeah, that just, I think, added a layer on top for a period of time there, which became quite stressful. So
how do you personally manage those stresses, you know, outside of work? Do you have strategies that you use to try and keep you kind of on a even keel?
I like to meet my friends. I like to do stuff with my husband now. Knit. Strategies. Gosh.
Kind of for leaving, do you have any kind of strategies for leaving work at work? You know, so you're kind of coming home, and how do you declutter from that when you've had a stressful day?
Yeah, I think I've just learned to either bury it or my partner about it, my husband about it. And I've also always said to him, I don't expect you to fix it. I just need you to listen to me. And he does. He just listens. I think he might be coming home. Yeah, he just listens, and that's really good to be able to offload it. I think the loss of a baby at whatever stage I still struggle with.
You've shared that on your questionnaire as one of the most difficult things or difficult parts of being a midwife. You've put here is grief, and that's in relation to somebody losing a baby.
So the first time it ever happened to me, I was a student, and the woman came in to our, I think it was at EPAU. No, it wasn't. It was I can't remember what they called it in the UK. Anyway, she came in just for a CTG at 38 weeks, and I had a bradycardic fetal heart. They rushed us straight through to scan, and then straight to theatre, and the baby didn't survive. Had high drops, and grieved that for weeks. I had a physical pain in my chest. I didn't have a very supportive partner at the time who just said, well, you chose to do the job. So I went to my parents, who were fabulous, and cried a lot. But I still get that horrible feeling in your gut.
Yeah.
I seem to just manage to bury it a bit better within me now. I've had some awful situations. But you try and make the best of it for the women.
Yeah.
For the families. I had one in particular within group practice who was supported through her labour. And I remember saying to me, I just want to be a mum. And I said to her, you are a mum.
Yeah.
She's still yours. Sorry, I really, really struggle with it.
Yeah.
I could not cope with it if it was mine. I know I couldn't cope if I was in that situation. So yeah, I don't know.
What support receive in those situations, because those are traumatic events for the mother and the father, and also for the staff.
Again, we have the external support by that we can go to, which is free of charge. I'm a talker, so I'll talk it out, or someone. Don't generally, they don't debrief. They've started to.
Yeah.
In the UK, we debriefed all the time.
Yeah.
So that was something, and you had your supervisor of midwives. So I've tried to take on that role with other people, to allow them to debrief to me as well, when I can. But they've started to do that now, so it's getting better. So I've had some terrible, awful situations with neonatal death or fetal. So I had one in particular where they were an Indian couple, and the mother being the matriarch wanted to be in control, so I had to adjust the situation to remove her in the best possible way I could from the room, because they didn't want to see the baby or hold the baby or do anything with the baby, and that was because that's what she wanted. So I had a chat with the husband, and and said, like, I don't think you should have to worry about your wife and your mother. So it might be better if she waited outside. And so we managed to do that, and it was a pretty awful delivery as well. We ended up with a shoulder dystocia. I couldn't get the baby out. So I had to get 2 consultants in. They did get it out in the end, but she ended up with like a 4th degree tear. But that aside, they actually wanted to be with their baby. So he dressed his baby and put a nappy on his baby, and she held her baby, and so you can make some good out of a bad situation, because I don't think they would have forgiven themselves if they hadn't have done that.
No.
So trying to read a room and read a situation is as big a part of it as caring for them. I always say I'm just an observer in their birth. I'm there to keep them and their baby safe, to the best of my ability. I'm not there to control it, just to be supportive, and give them the best outcome I can possibly give them. So they're not always good outcomes, but yeah.
There's some real challenges there, aren't there, in terms of, you know, you've got we've covered kind of the nature of the work of being a midwife and the pressure and the stresses, and then you've got those situations, tragic situations, where there's a loss of a baby, and you know, that just the whole dealing with that in an environment where there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress already is hugely challenging, both for on a team level and a personal level.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and we have some very sick mothers too. You know, the worst. I don't think we've had a mother's death for a while. That's pretty awful as well. You know, because it's midwifery is, yes, it's medical, but it's about life.
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes such a massive struggle and against what we go to work to do. Although we are aware that that is part of it, it's something that we don't anticipate on a daily basis.
No.
You know, whereas if you worked in oncology or, you know, gynae or something, I don't know, ICU, I don't know, you know, you kind of, you're more likely to have that situation.
Yeah. It's more expected, isn't it, in that regard, I think. What's the one thing, if you had the opportunity to influence somebody in authority, what would be the one thing that you would perhaps ask them for in relation to what we've talked about today?
Maybe just to listen a bit more. Listen to us. Listen to what we're telling you. I understand that, you know, you have budgets and whatever, but your organisation wouldn't run without us.
No.
So just listen to us. Listen. I find it really hard to accept that it's a business. Giving birth is a business. I think all women should have the opportunity to have the birth that they would like, in a setting that they would like. I would like home births and birth centres. I would wish for women not to have to. I know it's a massive country. It's not London. It's not England. I know there isn't a hospital down the road, and I know there isn't a midwife to go to your house and you know, birth your babies. But I think it's doable. You know, I think they try. I just think control isn't theirs yet. Not like it is in the UK, where it's midwifery-led.
What do you think the value would be if they listened to the staff? What would be the value for the workplace?
We would have more satisfaction. We would be happier. We would be providing a service that women want. There would be better outcomes for the babies. I think society in general would prosper from that. Birth is either incredibly traumatic or very joyful. I wouldn't say it's both. One or the other. And I think that start from my own experience with my first child, that start lays all the foundations for that journey ahead as a mother and a child, which then impacts on their life and how they see things. And I think that's what I got out of the group practice, was helping women on that journey, those first few weeks of support, and someone on the end of the phone, and telling them that it's okay to think this is terrible, and you know, and it's okay for your house to be a mess, and it's okay for you to still be in your pajamas when your husband comes home from work. It's okay. It doesn't have to be wonderful, but we're here for you. We've got you back. And I think that's what culture needs, society needs, on all levels, and all backgrounds. I think the Indigenous population should be allowed to birth how they want to birth, and we should be allowed to birth how we want to birth. And you know, they should birth on their own land, you know, how it should be for them. Because again, you know, we're just going through that whole cycle again. I think it's a massive part of how your life, or how the child's life develops, is that initial bond between you and that baby. And if you have a traumatic time bringing that child into birth, be it because you're not getting the birth you want, or in the setting that you want, or I don't know, the mode of delivery, whatever, it's just, it's just impacting on how you move forward as a family, or as a mother and a child. That's how I see it anyway. Am I making my point clear? I don't know.
Yes, you are. You're making a really valid point about the benefits, really, of group practice, both for the mother and the family going forward. And I think ultimately that's what every new parent wants, is a positive experience, and to know that there's somebody that they can call on, you know, for those moments where they don't know whether they're doing the right thing. I think is a huge part of kind of going through becoming a new mum, particularly, and a new dad, because dads struggle with that too. And I think my reflections, I think, as you're talking, were how difficult that must be, having worked in a group practice before and having seen how that model works and the benefits of that model and the closeness of that work to almost the opposite end of the spectrum. You know, that must be really challenging for you on a personal level, because you've seen how that model can work, and in a positive way. And you know, the point you made about if the organisation was to listen, you know, how we use feedback, not just from staff but from people who've used the service, so the mums and the dads and their experiences. Those
I think they do try. There is a working group, and there is users of the organisation on those groups, you know, and then there's a normal birthing group and everything, but it's just, you know, getting across the finish line with things is such a difficult struggle. Just, you know, why can't we have a birthing centre? You know, other hospitals have a birthing centre, you know. I don't know. It all comes down to money and litigation, I suppose. So, whereas we come at it from a different angle. It's about, you know, giving them the best, giving women and families the best we can possibly give them. You know, and we may whinge at times, and we may get frustrated, you know, that God, you're here because you have a toothache, go away. You know. But it's yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's what our aim is anyway.
Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody who's starting out in their career as a midwife? What advice would you give them?
A few things spring to mind, of kind of like protect yourself, by I give too much of myself, so you need to protect yourself, and it's really hard not to give, because these women are so vulnerable at this stage of their lives. Well, these families are so vulnerable, becoming parents for the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever time it is. They're vulnerable, but you have to keep a bit back for yourself. Don't give everything. It's so hard. It's so hard not to. Find a way of debriefing, even if you seek it out yourself, which is what I tend to do.
Yeah.
I'll go and find someone, or another team member or whatever, even if we don't have a formal debrief.
Well, that's good advice. That's good advice.
Yeah. I do think, like, midwifery group practice, it's really hard not to, because you're there on the end of the phone 24/7. But if you're a core midwife, you can switch it off. You can, if you haven't had an event that, if you've had an event where something hasn't gone well, you may need to bring it home. But if you bring home the good stuff too. I had a beautiful birthday. Everything was wonderful. So yeah, that's all I can really. I don't know how to protect myself, so sometimes it's hard to give advice to people. You're human. These things are going to have an impact on you. It's life. You've got two lives in your hands. So if something doesn't go how you think it's going to go, or there's an emergency or whatever, just talk about it. Reflect on it. I think we tend to hold ourselves responsible. What did I do wrong? What if I'd done this? What if? And what if you had done that and it had still been the same outcome? And what if you had done that and it's still been the same outcome? And over and over and over again.
And that's where debrief comes in, isn't it, really? Because it helps stop that looping that people do, that going back over it, the what ifs. Had I done something different? Did I miss something? The debriefs are so powerful, really, as a tool to help people understand. There's sometimes, that there's nothing that you could have done any differently. There's sometimes things we can learn, but you did the best you could do at that point in time. And I think that's it. It's about having those tools, having access to those tools, and having the understanding within an organisation about how important that is, because when that isn't there, that exactly what you've described there is what people go through, and that's not helpful always. you know, on a personal level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about your midwifery career as a whole, what would you most like to be remembered for?
Being privileged to be there.
Yeah.
Being privileged to be there for all three of your babies. The relationships that I've built with them, watching these children grow up. And, you know, I was the first person to touch them, the first person to see them. And being trusted with that role. 3 times or 4 times. You know, that I obviously made some difference to them.
Yeah.
And that was important to them.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be remembered for.
Yeah. And that's the positives, isn't it, of the role, really, the privilege of being there right at the very beginning of life, really, for that baby, family, couple. You know, that's a huge privilege. And that's the reward, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is the reward. I still get excited for every birth. My adrenaline is up here. Every birth, push every baby out.
Yeah.
You know, so that is the reward.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time today and for your honesty about, you know, the challenges and your feelings around things that have happened and the difficulties that you've faced, because I think it's always important for other midwives to realise that they're not the only ones who may have had similar experiences to you. And I think for people listening, you know, that's the purpose of these interviews, is so that people can not feel alone. And I really want to thank you for your honesty today in sharing, because it's not always talked about in terms of how we feel about things and how difficult things are. So thank you.
If it makes a difference, then I'm glad.
Good.
Thank you for allowing me to get my story out there.
You're very welcome.